America Vogue has lost the plot. How did a publication once renowned for shaping culture end up so far removed from it? Hi, if you're new here, my name is Tori. I am starting my adventure into making long form YouTube content. I'm a freelance writer, and I guess most people would recognize me as the editor and founder of Bricks magazine. My work predominantly looks on how we can dismantle inequity in the creative industry and fashion in particular. I recently wrote a Substack titled Is Vogue Embarrassing Now? Which was a play on obviously is having a boyfriend embarrassing now. When I shared it on Instagram, I can't believe how much discourse that it started. I actually put it up as a poll to see how many people thought that Vogue was embarrassing now. And out of 359 people who voted, 98% said that it was. And I'm just wondering how we got to this point, buddying up with the Bezoses, Axing Teen Vogue, and then of course that abhorrent Timothée Chalamet cover. America Vogue has lost the plot. I honestly can't remember the last time that I picked up a copy of Vogue, which is probably shocking as somebody who is obsessed with print media. It's probably quite damning to admit that, but I also think it would be quite embarrassing maybe at this stage if I did read it. Once, obviously, it was an undisputed helm of fashion journalism, and every single aspiring Carrie Bradshaw would want their work published in Vogue, and if they weren't, they were reading it. It seems at the moment that it is actually pretty cringe. As someone from a working class background has never particularly felt within reach or relevant to me as per se, as someone who grew up low income. I remember I sat at Bricks magazine because basically, long story short, my mum every week would be like, Tori, if you do the chores, I'll buy you a magazine and a pack of strawberry laces on Friday in Asda if you do them. So I would always pick up whatever publication that was available in Asda supermarket, which was usually Elle or Vogue, Teen Vogue, or then your like weeklies like Grazia. And I remember picking up Elle and Vogue specifically, and my mum almost grounded me because she caught me in my room cutting and sticking things out of it and putting it into a notepad to make my own magazine. And my mum was going crazy, being like, why would I spend all this money for you to just rip it up? And I remember saying to her, even though I was only about 9 years old, being like, Mum, I'm making it better. I can't afford any of this stuff anyway. Like, I can't relate to any of this content. And looking back now, I was basically making zines. And that kind of makes a lot of sense to me now why I ended up starting making a magazine. So I can't deny the legacy of these mainstream legacy media titles such as Vogue, and I can't deny its influence either. But with a wave of recent missteps, from running AI generated ads in print to the collective confusion of what on earth Vogue World is, because to me that is the epitome of cringe entertainment, to sweeping editorial shakeups from axing Teen Vogue into Vogue.com and firing the majority of their Black, predominantly writers from marginalized backgrounds, being one of the only trans members of staff. But how did a publication once renowned for shaping culture end up so far removed from it? I think I have some ideas as to why. So, we're in an era where relatability is the new authority. I've always said that one of the reasons why Bricks has done so well is because we've always had faces attached to the publication. I've obviously now run it for almost 12 years, but 6 years ago in 2019, when I decided to set it up as a proper business, I employed a couple of my friends to help me. And we'd always thought that, if we don't have finances or money, one thing we did have was a community of like minded people. So that's always been a core of why and what Bricks was built from. If you don't have currency, you only have authentic community. And I recognized quite quickly, especially in the pandemic, that if I attached my face to it as much as possible, it would be relatable. I didn't have money, but I was willing to co-opt my identity into the brand. Obviously, we've seen that with Anna Wintour, but a lot of publications at the moment are struggling because they don't have this quote unquote accessible figurehead that the general readers and audience can relate to. The era of having unapproachable editors, in my opinion, is over. In an ever changing media landscape where fashion journalism increasingly feels out of reach, diverse voices are being lost within that noise. In 2023, DigiDay analysed employment data from major US media companies, including Condé Nast, which is, of course, the owner of Vogue, discovered that the publication in America was still hiring predominantly white staff. Magazines need journalists that actually inspire the next generation and its consumers. And they need to inspire and include the next generation of creatives and speak to an inclusive audience. Which is why, number one, Chloe Mel's new appointment really didn't land well. She obviously did that exclusive with the New York Times to basically say with her entire chest that she was a proud Nepo baby, which she quotes, "There is no question that I've 100% benefited from the privilege that I grew up in. It's delusional to say otherwise. I will say, though, that it's always made me work much harder. It has been a goal for a lot of my life to prove that I'm more than Candice Bergen's daughter or someone who grew up in Beverly Hills." One of the things for me on this is that I actually, as someone who was like a former cleaner that started bricks up on the side, I don't think that someone who's working at Vogue would work as hard as someone who come from a working class background that doesn't benefit from wealth privilege to keep that job. Because the majority of these jobs are low income. I remember when I worked at ID, someone who worked there on a £17,000 a year salary. She didn't need the money. She genuinely did it to have something to do. She was aristocratic by blood and spent most weekends at manor houses and XYZ. And I'm not saying that she wasn't a brilliant writer. She absolutely was. But she didn't need that money. She didn't need to worry about making ends meet with extra income. So it's easier for someone with wealth privilege to keep that job than it is someone who doesn't benefit from that, right? The issue that I have is her appointment was hardly aspirational in an industry that has a relentless cycle of nepotism. Yes, we can argue that she did spend 8 years at Vogue and looked after Vogue.com and doubled its analytics and web traffic with the time that she was doing that job. She clearly knows what she's doing, but those achievements don't erase the broader issue. For budding journalists from marginalized backgrounds, it's just another reminder that these doors are often closed for us because these positions of power will always go to somebody who is already well connected, not entirely maybe the most deserving, relatable or talented. Which leads to my next point. Vogue no longer speaks to the next generation. American Vogue's last saving grace, in my opinion, was Teen Vogue. For years, it's delivered really progressive, political journalism for young people, and it helped bolster Condé Nast's credibility in social politics. It's reported on anti-trans legislation, to reproductive rights and grassroots activism groups in an incredibly precarious, fractured political America. Lauren Ducker's 2016 piece, Trump is Gaslighting America, marked a genuine cultural tipping point for Condé Nast, proving that a magazine that has always had a very predominantly fashion skew can actually believe in the intelligence of their audience and do political discourse content too. Ayana Ishmael, the style editor behind the columns CTRL+C, breakout column where she recreated fashion looks that were on thin-bodied celebrities to ask if something was trendy or was it just because it was styled on a thin body, which was incredible and challenged the industry's long overdue rigid beauty standards and beauty ideals. But Condé Nast T, which is what I like to call them nowadays, axed her along with a load of their other journalists. They cut her along with almost every other journalist of colour and their only trans staffer. She said that it sucks that it always seems to come down to the most diverse people in the room being let go. One would think after the viral British Vogue article is having a boyfriend embarrassing now that was written by Shantae Joseph, US Vogue might have noticed the cultural value of its diverse writers. But no. Another thing I wanted to add is that everything hits different when the world feels like it's burning. And at a time of global crisis, watching the social elite prance about at Vogue World just feels incredibly distasteful. When Lauren Sanchez graced the cover of Vogue America, which, by the way, was Chloe Mal's interview, to celebrate her opulent wedding to Jeff Bezos. The whole thing just rings really hollow when they're simultaneously firing their marginalized staff. To make matters worse, Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez are sponsoring this year's upcoming Met Gala, which there's been a lot of rumors that Jeff Bezos is looking to buy Condé Nast, and there was things being reported when they got married that he was looking to buy Vogue specifically as a wedding gift for Lauren Sanchez, which is really odd to me because it's like we've entered this stage, such a late stage of capitalism, where rich people have so much money that they think they can now buy culture to make them look more cool. But anyway, the move breaks from this long standing tradition of high luxury fashion brands being the main sponsor of the Met Gala. And I can't help but think that Jeff Bezos' involvement in this announcement coming just weeks after Axing Teen Vogue, who were very within their journalism critiquing Donald Trump when Jeff Bezos went to Trump's inauguration, really paints a big picture to me. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jeff Bezos is actually funding a lot of fashion media titles as a private investor, and I'll leave you with that. And I wouldn't be surprised with these rumors of him buying Condé Nast or buying American Vogue, whatever, has stemmed from somewhere, and obviously they've denied these rumors. But however, if he's a private investor, there's no way that any of us would be able to find out that information. So I'll leave you with that. But the Bezos Met Gala, to me, says something way more insidious in fashion media. It's brewing a culture where creative institutions and media no longer serve the public. It no longer serves the audience. It serves the whims of billionaires and the ultra powerful. I can't, yeah, okay, it's money, and maybe that's more money that brings in value from being audience funded, but you can't be a magazine. You're making content to an audience, so you can't have a magazine without readers. At Bricks, we've not had investors, there's no billionaires, there's no millionaires helping pave the way. It's just our audience and the odd online brand partnership that keeps us afloat. But if fashion media keeps chasing the approval of the ultra rich instead of the trust of their real audience and readers, the question won't be whether is Vogue embarrassing now, but whether it will matter at all in future. If cultural institutions won't return to the communities that they claim to serve, then maybe they no longer deserve the cultural power or legacy that they built in the first place. And I could go on so much longer. I could maybe even make a video just on why that Timothée Chalamet cover was just so abhorrently awful. But maybe that's a story for another day. But anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I did write about this. If you want to read the original Substack piece where this video was stemmed from, please also go and subscribe to my Substack. The article's currently all free. Okay, love you. Bye.